Cool. Recording was started. Is it like very expensive to record? As in like in size wise, or?
I don't know.
We'll find out.
Cool. All right.
I don't
So
think any of us have done it.
right. So problem number one, right, is we already have a bunch of pre-built packages, and we just need to get the whole thing running. So currently we have is a process definition that requires us to deploy all the web services, like services at depth. You can see that there, product search, report service, the job scheduler, the auth side, the auth API, and the admin side. And well, I didn't mention about the website, but it's all there. So in order to create a release, and that's the thing, in order to create a release, we need to specify the version of the NuGet packages to use. This has always been done automatically in TeamCity. TeamCity knows how to invoke the Octopus API and say, create a release with this version number. Version in this case, as we usually do, is 2.5.chainset.build number, and then dash R0, because it comes from TeamCity, so to say. And via the Octopus API, it tells Octopus, and for that release in your Octopus world, use these NuGet package versions, right? And they have to be either dash dev or dash main, depending on the corresponding channel to which they're going to be deployed. I'm gonna speak more about that later. But the idea is that we already have a NuGet feed giving us. Sure. We already have a NuGet feed with those versions that we want, and we know that it's going to be something like 96. We cannot just. This message that is right here is basically there because some versions cannot be probed, and that's because we're missing one of them in the NuGet feed, right? So the easiest thing to do would be to just do search and select the latest one that we have available. It's precisely that one, right? We must see also 96 available.
So these are the steps to create a manual release. Is that correct?
Manual release, correct? Yeah, absolutely. So okay. So there's some situation here. Let's see what's that.
Product search. Yeah, so.
Now there you go. So now it's 96 again. Search 89. So this is where you see that when it comes to report services, the latest NuGet package that we have available is 89, right? Now we're going to let 89 to be delivered with all the other latest versions of the sites and services, right? 96.
But you don't have to do this for these ones because they're already selected, right?
Yeah, you could actually not worry about them because they're selected already, but just to, for consistency, right? Just to do it all specific, you can always do that, right? And this is a way to create, this is the most manual way in which you can create a release. So we have to think of.
So what is the release come up?
Right.
Oh, latest, last. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, I want to use something like that version, but I'll do one funny thing here. So you can give your release actually a more meaningful name. This is a special release. It's yes, it is 96, but it is fixed reports, so to say. So we have to keep the same version syntax, semantic versioning they call it, with major, minor, revision, and then counter or something like that, dash tag. Here we can call it whatever. So really, frankly, I don't care what we call it as long as we know what's going on. So whatever, right? And we'll call it whatever 0, whatever 1.
How about the actual reports?
Right. So. Yeah, sure. I mean, we can actually call it R.
Should it be R3 or what was the last one? R2?
Well, we can say RRS. I will actually explain something right now. I think it's kind of very relevant. So far, because we are building all the sites and services at the same time, out of the same revision, and at the same time means with the same build number, we have been able to bundle them up all under the same version number, with revision and build number. That version number is what we've been using for Octopus. But in the real world, if we actually develop each service and website in its own line, they will have their own revision numbers, and they will have most likely also their own build numbers, right? Now, the process of creating the release will have also its own build number, but that process of creating the release is agnostic to revisions. Instead, what we would see is a version number in Octopus that would be specific to the release. And if you want to see what it is comprised of, you can always see it in when you go to that. Let me actually open it right here in a different tab, and I just say do not clean this.
Probably major, minor.
And something that is specific to
some-
release. Look, right here. If we look in the history, for example, we will see that this is made out of these packages, which right now have all well, maybe not that one, but they are getting purged, right? Now we can see a little problem, I think, with the product. There you go. So this actually tells us that Octopus doesn't need to be married with the release of with the version of your NuGet packages, right? So in fact, we can create here something that doesn't even make use of this, syntax and all that.
This is
But
just
for the
currently
purpose-
this is just the convenience.
Correct.
So we can.
Correct. We know that the majority of packages come out of this change set and that build in the Everest build, right? But in this case, I'm just going to fix this to RRS, which is the report service 89, right? Just to call it that way. They can say that if we want, right? This is a manual. For all I care, this is a manual release. So now creating this should actually be okay. Manual release that fixes RS to version the latest available version 89, right? Again, this is really more of a, so we say save. So the release has been created, right? When we go to the dashboard, the main dashboard, now we see that we have that version available to be deployed, right? Now, again.
So what you just created was what it just did was essentially gather, basically create a version number.
Yeah.
And point to the actual packages, but you haven't really done anything except for creating this number.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't done any new builds and anything. All I did is I just
created
created a bundle.
there, but you just created a new version number.
Yeah.
Right.
So now, if we actually click on this release definition, this is what I was telling you. You can actually see. I keep getting this little nonsense that I see there. They will tell you explicitly what are you using for what, right? So we can see that we're using version 89 for the report service, but the rest is 96. Again, this is just the process of creating the manual release, right? You go into create release, you specify which packages you want to make your release, and you give it a meaningful version number, right? And I think this is not very well thought right now, but this is kind of like a spike. All right, so in the overview of the project, this is ready to be deployed and deployment, right? Now, what happens when we deploy? I think you've already seen this a few times, Yuri. This lists the steps that are going to be deployed and the targets for that step that are actually compatible. Everything is compatible with a dev, and everything right now is going to be deployed to a dev, right? Just to prove that we actually want to deploy almost everything, I guess, right? Deploy to specific subset, no, that's it. So we just hit the button. So it's going to be deploying our manually created release of Octopus. Again, this example of manually creating a release is only because right now we had that fantastic opportunity to do it. The goal for me today will be to actually create that release out of TeamCity while we fix the report service, right? Not stopping the deployment of the other sites and services, right?
Yeah, so let's say when the reporting service is fixed, let's say they told you that the license is fine.
Yeah.
You can just trigger a new build, which will automatically trigger deployment, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. So the thing is that now in the definition of the Everest jobs definition, the build itself is agnostic of deployment, right? The build only does build. It does package the sites and services in that Octopack step and creates these artifacts, but this doesn't know anything about Octopus. It is the next build, the Octopus deploy create release build, that does something with those packages that were consumed before. Here is where I actually specify something in that definition. I say specifically, use the artifacts to Octopus release this folder contains the NuGet packages created, and basically this API call knows to fetch the versions out of the packages that I just built from my previous build. But this does not include a definition for the report service because it wasn't built.
Could you scroll down?
So again, this is the build of the solution. This is the problem that we're currently encountering at creating a release, right? This has so far been our automated way to create a release in Octopus, based on the last NuGet packages built and their corresponding versions. Right now, this is breaking because we're expecting to define a version for the report services, which we now stopped building. I will have to update this in TeamCity. We can actually check on how we do that. But for now, the main goal of this exercise, part one, was to make sure that we can deploy even with the old version of the report service, right? So, the thing is that I know that what we can do is, I actually can see we're in the Octopus deploy configuration. This is based on a template. So if we want to update that, we would have to update the template, but we have to be very careful in that. This has a, I'm passing this command line variable to the octo.exe tool, which is the API tool. There is a way in which I can specify what version to use for what. And I will actually do that, but in a notepad, because I like to do that there. And I think this is called package. And I have to specify the version. This is done there, it's almost there. It's over. Get out. I have to
think you can move the bar.
Right. Ports. And this is the thing. I know that the version that I want to use is already going to be the same. Task summary. I think I have to go. So we know that the deployment was successful. Can we see reports? So what I'm doing right now is actually fixing this version in the deployment step. Sorry, in the release creation that is automated at TeamCity. So I'm saying for this package, Amazon services, blah, 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 yada, 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 use this version, and for the rest, use whatever is in that folder, right? Which I already predefined to contain my output of my build.
If you wanted another package, you
How
would
many
just...
times do you have to copy that?
No, just one minute.
You like copy.
Yeah, so it's probably
You
more.
wanted to make sure that what you copied is actually copied.
He doesn't trust Windows.
Right now, this is definitely going to. This is what I did here is kind of ugly, but it's more of a proof of concept.
So if you wanted to specify specific versions for multiple different packages, you could do that through this command line. Just I don't know.
But the command line is supposed to be used by an automation tool like TeamCity, and in our case, you will see that works perfectly fine for 2.5, but we're also using the same template definitions for 2.4. And 2.4 doesn't even have, we cannot be using that for 2.4, right?
So you change the template, and now it affects, it's going to affect 2.4 as well?
Yeah. I changed
Could you just change
yeah, actually,
not the template, but the specific...
Right now, that's what I'm thinking we should do, right? So I stayed in the template, right, over here. And let me actually undo my crazy quick and dirty fix over here, right? So let's save that. Now let me actually go to the specific build configurations that come out of this template. And that's, how do I build this nonsense?
Yeah, you can just move it. Just drag it back.
Okay, how will you get out? Right, so this is 2.4. As you can see, this is inferior. I cannot modify it. What I can do is I can probably copy it, right, to that build, to the same place, and then there I modify it and disable this one, right?
So in main, you're making a build step that is exactly what the template is, and then in dev, you're going to copy it and modify.
Oh no, sorry. I thought this was dev. I don't need to do this. I just leave it as it is right now. Right? Oh, apologies. I thought this was yeah, this is my. Yeah, no, but you saw exactly what I wanted to do, right? I want to go to, so main, I leave it as it is right now, only because, no, actually in main, what I will have to do is look for the report that actually, the latest version, the corresponding latest version. Probably I will have to do the same thing in both places. But right now we're only tackling dev.
So
Right?
in main, the report service is also failing?
No, we haven't. I haven't yet tried a build, but I'm imagining it's gonna fail, and I don't want to create a failed build, a failed build on main, just knowing that it's probably gonna fail, right? I haven't had a look, but we know that the problem at hand right now is deployment to dev, right? So let me do that thing here. So I disable, yeah, whatever. I disable. I want to copy that to 2.5, yeah, same thing. Right, all right. So this is temporary. And yeah, here we specify that thing, right? I'm fixing that version for that patch. Right, voila. So I have updated this build configuration. This is the neat thing of a CI tool like TeamCity, right? We already have in the chain all these builds are already succeeded, like 96 and so on, right? And the only thing that I need to do really is just run this thing, Octopus deploy, create, release, and hopefully.
So we don't have to run the whole shebang?
You don't have to run the whole shebang. Or shabil, right? There you go. So we didn't run the whole shebang. Bingo, voila.
So when are you gone?
So now we should
on the weekend. Yeah, next week I'm gone.
So now you should be seeing in the Octopus that it's been deployed, the new version has been deployed.
Exactly. Right? So now we should actually go to releases, and we will see a release called 96-R0 coming from TeamCity that is available for deployment. However, this is important to understand. In TeamCity, I'm separating the deployment process from the release creation process as well, not just the build process from the release creation. So let me kill this thing that I need to see that. So you can see that this is the deploy one, right? And now I can do that, right? I want to say run.
Didn't you already run?
No, I run the create release.
Okay.
Right.
So what exactly does create release do?
Create release does what I did manually. I just create a release. Deploy release actually deploys that release that exists in Octopus.
Creates a version number that's associated with specific versions of the NuGet package.
Exactly.
But essentially, we didn't really need that. The deploy release, we could just go to Octopus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. Absolutely. But I decided to do it in TeamCity because sometimes of situations like this, I need to create different releases or I need to automate the creation differently, and I want to keep that kind of separate. So if we go to the dashboard, we will see that that release is now being deployed, right? So this is based on so this is another useful thing, how to read the task logs in Octopus. It's kind of very useful. So when you are inspecting what happened during a deployment, usually we only care about that when there is an error when the deployment failed, right? But sometimes it's also useful to see all the time. Click on here where it says verbose, because that way you will see all the history. And if you want to expand all, you can see it all, but you can go one by one, right? So in acquire packages, you will see what are the versions of the packages that were actually acquired. So it's looking for the services.
Yeah, I can already see reports.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly that one, right? The package was found in cache, no need to download, right? So we know that we're deploying that package as well. The next thing that we want to make sure obviously is that this stuff actually works, right? The important thing is to observe that this releases, we don't see them in the overview. Let's remember that, right? In the overview, you just see what has been deployed, where. Releases, you see them in the releases tab. Scope them make it easier.
What's the difference? You see what's...
overview is what has been deployed. This is your deployment history. Your latest versions per environment. You can see this is
release.
Release is just the logical release.
What's available to deploy?
Association between
okay,
our version number and packages.
Yeah, it's actually exactly like that. Is the bundle of the NuGet packages and versions and Octopus variables, right? Because that's the thing. When you make an Octopus variable update, you need to update that release or update the release to fetch that thing, or when you update the deployment process. So we'll actually do that later. Is we will update this deployment process to include the EA tool and without having to reveal anything in TeamCity.
So, sorry, you just.
So when you create a release, does it physically bring all the packages?
Not until you deploy.
So not until I deploy.
When you create release, you do nothing.
Yes. So if something happened, let's say those packages got purged, then my release is basically screwed.
Yeah, your deployment will fail. Your release is essentially potentially screwed because.
So it's just basically
pointers.
Specifying. Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
A release is a pointer to a lot of stuff, right? And that better be there when you click deploy.
So are the variables also versioned in some way?
Actually, they are, but they are not easily. The versions are not easily managed for sure not in the UI. Octopus has an API and it allows you to do that on the API, but these people have. I mean, it's miraculous that they have managed to still ship. What version are we running right now? Something like version 3 point something, 3.2.6, and I think we already have 3.2.11 available. Maybe the new updates allow us to do that, right? I haven't updated this in some time, for sure.
So theoretically, even though it gives us the option to deploy some previous package, the deployment of that previous package may not work because the variables we keep up to date with whatever we need for the latest.
Totally. This is where the release itself becomes a snapshot in time. So when you say if we want to release a previous version of the packages, maybe what we would want instead is to release a previous release, because that release already contains not just the snapshot of the NuGets and their versions, but their their compatible variable values, right?
Oh, so it does save like the variable values at that time.
Absolutely, that's it. And yeah, so in fact, like if I go right now to
so we couldn't we couldn't really recreate an old release just using random old build numbers and the current set of variables, but we could use a release that was previously created.
And it contains a snapshot. So in fact, sometimes we can see if, let me say for this still deploying, let's wait for it to finish and then.
So essentially now,
it's taking a while.
We want to add this.
Oh, somebody made a build, look at that. So maybe somebody just checked in. Let me guess who that was. Probably Mr. Zamak. Right.
Usually when you guess something, you wait until, or you do that before you look at who it actually is.
I just blame Mr. Reza right away.
So basically, now, if you want to add EA2, right? What you could do is to take the previous release, take basically the release that we created now, essentially reuse all the variables, recreate that release plus add that additional step.
Well, it's not the release that we need to update, it's the deployment step that we need to update first, because the deployment process specifies those pointers that constitute the release, right, along with the variables. And now we need to add a pointer to a step that we call EA2, right? So just to guarantee that everything is still, well, you know what, this is going to take a little while, let's finish. But we know one thing. There is a package called EA Energy Analyzer, right? So let me grab this name. This is kind of a nice thing to see. So let's wait for Mr. Yuri to. So what we're gonna do, because now we're gonna do this thing. So I'm just going to grab that energy analyzer name, and I want to say add state. Now, I already created a template for the site. Forget about these adepts. They are not the templates. These are the templates. Armstrong.template IIS application and IIS site. Right. This is a website. We're going to use the IIS site template, and pretty much we just
Can we not just remove those old ones that are not?
Yeah, I think I will actually do that probably right now. My feeling is that I'm probably still using them somewhere, and that's what prevented me from doing it. Right.
Okay.
So stuff like that. Oh, typical stuff. When we define a step, we have to assign a machine role on which this step is going to run. Right now, this machine role hasn't been defined. That's not resolvable, right? So what I'll actually go and do is I'll discard this stuff that I just started.
How did you even? I missed the part. How did you get there?
I'll repeat it again, right? So we're going to start again. We're going to create a new site and application that runs, or that not runs, is installed on only a specific number of targets, and what distinguishes the targets are the roles of those targets. This goes along the lines of explaining what roles are. We'll explain more and better what roles really are. But the best way to identify, to know what a role is or to define it is, a role is basically a label on a target, right? So a dev has all these roles, because a dev runs the whole shebang, right? So we're going to add yet that another role, the EA role, right? And I just want to use convention. I want to use the same name as the NuGet package, as the same name as the project, the same name of everything.
What's a role? Once again, what's the meaning of role?
A role is a label that is going to be used to join the universe of environments, if you want to call it, or targets, and steps, deployment steps. When we deploy a release, some steps of that release are applied to only specific machines. When we have an environment like demo.
So environment is your dev, demo, and then you're saying that those steps are that environment, and those steps are that environment, right?
Well, in that target, because environment is the whole of targets, right? Using Mr. He, and I hopefully let me see if I could put it correctly. The targets comprise the environment, right?
Okay.
We deploy to targets, but the deployment we deploy to environments, but the deployment on the environments execute the steps on targets. And what tells what steps is run in what target is the role, right? So we have just defined the energy analyzer role on the dev environment, right? On the dev, that target which belongs to the dev environment.
So would kind of so you've defined the roles in a very granular way.
Yeah.
Is it common for them to be kind of grouped up, such that you've got a role for, say, IIS web server, and a role for database, and a role for stuff like that, at a like kind of higher level, and then
granularity is actually the way for microservices, because for example,
I understand that. I'm just like, if we weren't going that way, would you?
Yeah, you probably would have only websites. Yeah, maybe my role would be called websites, right? Yeah. And all of them. Okay. But now the problem is that now if you use the role websites on a particular target,
that means that all websites have to go to
would be deployed there, right? Okay. And if we want to extend our dev environment to have its own database server, right? Because right now we're deploying the databases as well on a dev. We probably want to have SQL dev, right? And in SQL dev, we're going to deploy only the GDC and the Rapids and the single sign-on.
It's going to be a new target.
It's going to be exactly a separate target on the same dev environment, right? A dev is a machine name, and the machine itself is not the whole environment thing.
So the targets comprise the environment.
Targets and roles comprise the environment.
Targets
and the roles comprise the environment.
I would say the roles comprise the target, and target comprises the environment.
Well, no, but the roles can be shared, right? Roles.
Yeah, okay. But still, yeah. It gets just reuse. You can just reuse.
You know what I mean?
Roles and, yeah,
totally. And in fact, you will see one thing, that in that dev pipeline, we can deploy to a dev, and after deploying to a dev, we could deploy to internal verification, also known as a dev demo. In the dev demo, I still haven't updated those targets with the EA tool. But we will later, but this will actually give us a good example of what it means to have this separation between roles and targets. So dashboard, right? Everest again. Let's enhance the deployment process. All right. We wanted to add a new step. It's a new website, template ice site, and I just stick with everything. That's why I kind of like that approach. The package ID is the same. The installation directory, I think this all is actually standard. So let me go to my definition of another website. Let me recycle the admin site, for example. So installation directory is I'm going to use actually standard. I know that I have to update something here. Oh, god damn it. Okay,
I'm surprised if that's a template. I should be filling those.
Oh, I will. I will update this thing later. It's just that right now I haven't. It's not top of my priorities, right? And this is the kind of stuff that once you go into a template, oh, you have for God's sake to make sure that it works. So you spend easily like half a day fixing those things. So host name. Mind you, if you look at the template definition, believe me, oh man, we're doing a lot already on that template. So it's a lot of stuff that is already automated. Config transform, whatever. Actually, okay, whatever. I think this is a config transform. That's another story. That's another part of the story that I haven't discussed, but that Yuri knows a lot about.
When are we targeting? So energy analyzer is going to QA with 2.5?
Yeah, if we deploy, when we deploy dev releases that come from the dev pipeline, they can go to demo, and only up to demo. They end there. They will never be allowed to be promoted to QA and whatever. That actually lives under a concept called channels.
Right.
Right. This is something that I haven't explained much, but the idea is that anything right now that comes to this, when I tell Octopus, create me a release with a version that lies between 2.3 and 2.5. Look at it here, right? And with NuGet versions that reside within this range and that have this tag in the NuGet version. So when that happens, the release will live in what is called the main channel, and it has a main pipeline lifecycle. That lifecycle is basically described to say it can go all the way up to production. But when my NuGet packages have a -dev, those releases live in a development lifecycle, which can only go up to demo, right?
And that's where you create. Where do you define those life cycles?
So I can actually take it to the library. The library. We can look at that later, right? But that's the idea. You can see here that the development pipeline allows for integration on dev or local, and then promotion to internal verification. And the main pipeline allows for, you have to follow this in order, integration in main or local, and then internal verification, then QA, and then production, right? This is one of those things that make Octopus unique in the world, really, right? To have this level of control. All right, so this thing was deployed, I guess. Now, it turns out that we have updated our deployment process, right? What happens if we do create release? Actually, let me verify that deployment process first of all. Energy analyzer. So we have that. I need to update this.
Okay, but this
was going to be a big mistake.
Didn't answer my question yet.
Yeah.
So we're targeting energy analyzer to go out with 2.5.
That we actually wouldn't think about that with 2.5, as I would do more in this regard. Only this step. Okay, this is the situation.
Okay, so what I'm wondering is when are we going to have to set up those config transforms?
I see. Or variables, right? The moment that we need to deploy.
It's per development environment.
Actually, that's where I was going into. This is, and thank you for reminding me of that, because otherwise I would have skipped it. Your question is more related to this problem. We are deploying the energy analyzer as a step in the deployment of a dev. That step runs on the deployment targets that have that role, the EA role, right? That long name. Now, we have to also specify that that only applies so far for the dev environment, right? And if we want to be even more granular, we can also specify the dev channel and so on, but we know that that's controlled the dev environment, right? Now, what that means is that when creating a release, that step is only going to be executed if we actually run it on dev, or we deploy to dev. Right now, we're not going to be deploying to main or dev.04 releases that were created with the energy analyzer NuGet package in them. Right? We're just going to ignore it, right? So that is more or less how we control that. So it will tell us that right now, we're going to run this step, deploy the energy analyzer NuGet package to machines in this role, only on dev, right? Now, what is the overview right now? We have deployed, this is the latest available release, probably is 97, right? So what would happen when we create release? The operation completed successfully, or whatever. It found all the packages, I guess, that it wanted to look for. I don't get this. Successful. Oh, now what I wanted to do was more like this. So let us suppose that we want to redeploy this package, right? So that we want to redeploy this release. I think this is there you go. So we cannot see anything related to energy analyzer here, right? There is nothing there that says energy analyzer. If I try to say deploy to dev again, it will tell me that same thing we're talking about, the snapshot. For consistency of this, this deployment, we use the snapshot of the variables and deployment process. So if we want to deploy this release again, it will run exactly the same scripts, exactly the same, and using exactly the same configuration variables, right? Which was created
as the previous. It's exactly the same as what?
The same version of the variables, the same version of the steps. And in this case, we have a new version of the steps.
Same as what? As the previous release?
As when it was created.
Okay.
Right. Now, what Yuri was asking is, can we have somehow of a better way to see what version of these steps and variables correspond to the release? And I'm like, unfortunately, not in the UI. It's something that it has already been requested, right? And I voted for it and all that. And the Octopus people know that, yeah, it would be good to have, but it's so far a good to have, right? And probably they will put it later on. But we can see in the API. The idea is that without having to rebuild anything, how can we create a release based on the latest thing that we already have? Well, we know manually, right? So we go to create release, and I don't want to have. I don't care about these empty spaces. We know that we can actually select the latest already, right? So 97 is there, 97 is there, 97 is there. Now, there are certain things that we did on the energy analyzer, and that's we did not define the Octopus variables, right? 89 is going to be fixed. That's a report service. So as you can see, the only thing that we did in this version, different from the other one, is that we included now finally the EA tool. But every other version that comes created automatically from TeamCity will already include it because it's already part of the definition, right? It's just that this is a version that was created before we updated the step process, right? So we just created it, and as you can see, it automatically increases that. That's one of the reasons that I have that R0, because in case that we come here and do this kind of thing again, manually create it. The definition of what is this package code? What is this, bro? So I like to put those comments because at least we can see them. There is actually a whole point in making sure that the comments that we put in TFS are the comments that are going to be part of the deal. And in the build, we can also ask TeamCity to please also put these comments when you create a release. We can do all that. But then again, right? So when you create a release, that doesn't automatically mean that we automatically deploy, right? So far, it can be done in Octopus, but we're not doing it. We'd rather deploy from TeamCity. Or rather, we trigger the deployment from TeamCity, right? Now we just deploy that thing, right? Now, here we can see.
Okay, so that's fine. Yeah. Okay.
You're saying variables?
Well, no. You're like, we don't do this in Octopus. We do this in TeamCity, and then Octopus. You're like, all right, let's deploy.
So.
Oh no,
So
the automated.
You mean just the automated occurs in TeamCity, but it's fine.
To deploy manually? Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's perfectly legal. The thing is that actually, as a matter of fact, every other environment except dev or main receive manual promotions and deployments, right? It's only dev or main that are automated, but that automation is done in TeamCity, which is our CI tool.
Which are other environments?
Demo and QA and production,
right?
The deployment those are triggered manually or explicitly.
Always manually.
So far,
we never deployed TeamCity directly to.
In a true continuous delivery pipeline, we will have to start. Basically, you deploy to dev, and then run integration tests.
Yeah,
then you report back to TeamCity, and then TeamCity, okay, now deploy to the next stage, and so on and so on, right?
But then if you wanted to automate it, it would always involve TeamCity, right? It could never.
Yeah, preferably.
Could never go.
Yeah. So now, guess what's going to happen when we deploy this thing?
Okay.
Yeah, why?
Because the site for energy analyzer doesn't exist.
The site is going to be created. The step creates the site.
Something.
But it's pretty close to that.
You didn't do the transform.
Similar to this, related to that, is that there are no variables that define those things in the steps, right? So if I go to this step, it requires a variable called. This is defined already in the project. Let me actually scope this and move it out. This is defined in the project. This is probably defined. But this is not defined. So this is the thing. This is our infamous variable set, right? Installation root directory for dev is well defined right there. This applies to all the steps. However, for the variables that correspond to each site or specific step, we keep them in their own separate variables.
How do you know which of them correspond? What corresponds to each site and what
right
are at the root?
It says right here. Oh, because this is global, basically, right?
Oh, okay, so
this applies to.
If you were looking at the step, you wouldn't see that. You would just see variables.
Right.
You had to go here.
So
figure it out.
Yeah, and we don't have that for the. We don't even have a variable set for the admin. For the new energy analyzer site, right? So I think it's actually a good thing to show at this moment for those who don't use Roman mostly. So you go to variable set. So we have this thing, and I'm just going to create that right now. And it's called, okay, well, it's horrendously long. Somebody has to
my train. So.
Oh, okay, no problem. But ideally, really is Mr. Yuri who now will somehow take care of
the last
protocols.
thing?
I guess so. Well, what was the other thing that we wanted to?
No, I don't know.
This was the last thing when you brought us into it.
So deploy the energy analyzer, right? So we deploy the energy analyzer. It was like a tutorial on how to do these updates on Octopus, right?
So anyhow, this is recorded. It's just to make sure
that
the recording. I know where it stores the recording.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah. So now the only thing that we need to put on this, so for whoever's staying here, on this variable set, would be the bindings to use, right? A dev has its own binding. Maybe we don't have DNS entry.
Probably not yet. No.
For the EA tool, but we can probably play along with the hosts file, right?
Yeah, we can.
And so we can probably just call it, for this, for what we do right now, we can probably just go to the computer. Let's just finish this thing. So, like the rest. Forward. know that this is not a huge size. So we know that actually this is going to be to left, and it's energy analyzer. Oh.
Maybe use AN?
Yeah, it's guessing it, I guess. Right, so this is from HTTP port 80 and IP address that doesn't matter. And this we want to copy something like this. So we can call it EA. What do we call it? EA at the depth, maybe? They like it to share. It's not our app. Alright, cancel. That's it. So the variables are there. Now, we created a release because we updated the process, right? And yeah, every time that we update the process, we will need to create a new release based on all packages. It doesn't matter, based on the previous release.
And so we change the variables and we need to recreate the release? We
actually don't. That's the reason why I'm bringing that up. When we update the variables, only what we can do is go to that release. Now, if we try to say deploy to dev, it will say, no, it didn't say anything. It's kind of strange. Oh, because I haven't updated the process. Sorry. Variables. So I created the variable set, but I haven't updated the variables itself, right? So now I update that right there. So once I incorporate it and save it.
So those ones that aren't checked there, those are
right now no use. Yeah, those variable sets are not yet used. Yeah, I totally agree. Ideally we want to dump all the web transforms, all the config transform values into these variable sets. But haven't been able to do it quickly and succinctly. Now, we have updated the process, the variables, and if I go to that again, and I would say deploy, actually I could have done that from here, right? That warning will come and tell me, come on, why don't I see the warning? Let me make sure that I did this thing. Save it correctly. So the energy analyzer, right? And release. Is that last release? Is 97, I guess. I can deploy to that. Interesting. Okay, but in any case, if we ever get the
when you click deploy now.
No, I would see it right here, I guess. I would expect to see it right here. It's possible that.
Were you creating the variables on a different tab and it didn't save them?
No, I see that actually. Let me see variables. Then I incorporated this, and they're there.
Okay. Yeah.
So web energy analyzer and there. So it should already be applied. My feeling is that maybe because it has never been deployed.
Right? So it saves the variables when you deploy it, maybe.
That would be kind of silly, but here we can see the variables actually used right now. When this release was created, a snapshot of the variables was taken, and here we will see a large snapshot. And here's where I would not expect to see energy analyzer. Yeah, you see, I don't see anything matching there. But the idea is that, and in fact, this is
update variables.
Yeah, no, I know. That's what we want to do. But I would have preferred to see the whole thing telling you. Yeah, it's not an error; it would be a warning, right?
Right.
And that's exactly what you would do. So when you get that thing, you know that what you do is you go to the release.
Let's actually update the variables now and try to
Yeah, that's the thing, right? But it's too bad that we didn't get that update variable. It's gonna tell you yada yada yada. Yes, update. So now, if we want to inspect those variables again, we will see energy thing showing as a variable somewhere there, right? And there you go. So for that thing, we're using that. Yeah. So now that step should deploy fine. And we just deploy. Now. And we're going to be looking at this step working. That's about it. Once it works, we should. Do we have a host file here? Well, maybe we should just let it run and go to our computers and test from there.
Sure.
Yes. My hand is hurting. That was pretty much the goal, right? I think it's done. So do we stop from here? Okay, what do we do? Should I say stop recording? I don't want to do anything bad.
The third one.
Stop presenting or stop recording?
Maybe
this one?
Sure, stop presenting.
Stop recording.